Hi guys, I am finally making another video. I am making my birth vlog video. I did want to record throughout the day, but a lot of things just happened really fast and I just didn't get around to it, so I apologise for that. I'm also sorry how bad my face looks. I would like to blame having a 2-week-old, but it is not the case. It's just my bad skin playing up. But anyway, so we went in on the 30th of November. This is gonna check my memory because it was, like I said, over 2 weeks ago. So we went in the 30th of November at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd taken my tablet at 10 o'clock on the night. I wasn't allowed to drink or eat after 2 o'clock other than a little bit water to take my next tablet at 6 in the morning on the 30th. So we arrived at 7 o'clock. We got put straight onto the ward where I got my bed. I will insert a picture of what it looked like. And then there was a little cot where, of course, Brody would be put once he was here. So I think I got a picture of that as well, so I'll insert that. So we were told we were second on the list, so we had a bit of a wait. So we was lay around. And then at 9 o'clock, so we'd arrived at 7, got onto a room. At 9 o'clock, there was a nurse come in and it said, "You are now first on the list because the woman that was before you," which I did see her, she had come in, she was in the bed opposite, got sent to labour and delivery because she was really poorly. She was thrown up and she was not well enough for surgery, so we were first. So they said, sorry if you can hear Brody, they said that I would have someone come and talk to me about the spinal block that is put into your spine. You'll sign some consent forms, the doctor will talk you through it, all of that stuff. So within the next hour we had people coming, like I said, talking about all of the risks, checking me over, listening in on Brody to make sure he was okay. And my blood pressure was high. Nightmare. I think it was just the anxiety and the nerves of being in the hospital, about to have a baby, about to have a C-section and everything like that. And I was just, my emotions were just all over. So they were like, it's not too bad, we'll come back and check in a little while. So they came back and it had dropped a little bit, still a little high, but they'd said, oh, you're well enough, signed the consent, went through all of what was going to happen. Then a midwife come who was absolutely lovely. I am so glad that she was my midwife because, like I said, she was absolutely lovely. She just made you feel so relaxed. Lee had went to get on his hat, what they get dressed in for the surgical theatre room. Then I went to get my gown on. I did want to record what was happening, update you then, but it just happened fast. They were like, come on, get your boots on, we're going to the theatre, the doctor is waiting. So we're just straight walk to the theatre. I had to leave our phone and everything in the ward, which really turned out to be a pain, as I'll get to. So I went to theatre. Lee had to sit outside because he wasn't allowed in while they'd done the spinal block and while they prepared the room for surgery. So I went in. There was, I think, 4 to 5 ladies, midwives, doctors, the lady who done the spinal block. They were all in there waiting for me. And I went in and sat on the edge of the bed with my feet on a stool. And I was freezing because I had to have my gown open at the back ready for the spinal. And we were waiting for some woman to come to, I don't know if she wanted to just supervise, if she was just a student or what. But we were waiting for a good, I think, about half an hour, 45 minutes for her to come over. They'd rang twice on the phone and I don't think she showed up in the end, because the doctor come in and said, we need to get this on. So anyway, I was sitting on the edge of the thing, got the spinal block. Wasn't pleasant. I mean, it hurt a little bit, but it wasn't, I think I worried it a lot more than it was worth worrying for. So it wasn't too bad. It was a little sore when they put the first bit of numbing in before they put the actual injection in, but it was fine. So I was sitting and then they lay me on the bed, waited for me to go home, sprayed up my leg, can you feel this, all of that stuff. And then I was on the, they were checking my blood pressure, so I had my arm out on a stool where I had the blood, blood pressure pad over, what was checking every 5 minutes I think. And then I had a, like, I've still actually got the little tiny mark, you might not be able to see a little scar there, which I had the, is it an IV in, where I had some water and antibiotics going through. So I had that in this hand, so I had to have like my hand there, like here for that one, and then this one was out, so I was like this on the bed. But it was okay, and the doctor come in and he was like, we've waited long enough, we've got to get this on. So he just come in, he started just cleaning my stomach, they like painted with the colour, literally just preparing to go. They hadn't even put up the thing so you can't see, so they were putting that up as they were starting cleaning, and I was like, okay, get this up first before you start doing anything. So then he was like about to start, and I'd said to the lady, well, is no one going to get Lee? She was like, oh yeah, can someone go and get our partner please? And I was like, really? So they anyway went and got Lee. But it was so relaxed at this point. When I had Ethan, it was really rushed. With it being an emergency, there was just a swarm of nurses, doctors, just everything, midwives, they were just all shump straight in. Where this one was a lot calmer, where we were waiting for the doctor and this lady, we were chatting about names, Christmas, we were asking if we wanted Christmas songs on, just having a funny joke about, they were just all talking to each other, talking to me, and it was just really, really relaxed and calming, which was nice because it kept me calm. So then, like I said, they went and got Lee. So Lee sat down, they started with the everything. It was just normal like pressure. I was looking at Lee waiting to hear anything. I think this time it was maybe around 10 o'clock. So they started, and then all of a sudden we heard this popping. It was like a suction popping, and they started getting a little panicked, and I was like, okay, what is this? And I just kept hearing the popping. And when it was actually popping, I got a splat of blood on my hand because my arm was out. They come to here, so I got blood splattered onto my hand. I looked up, and on the lights that were over, of course, like over the bed, there was blood on that, and there was just popping and popping. And I started to panic, and I started to feel sick actually before I heard the popping. I started to feel sick, and I'd mentioned to the lady who was doing, like, who done my spinal block, and she was also in control of my drip and my meds and everything like that, like the antibiotics and everything. And I said, I feel a little sick, and she said, yes, that's because your blood pressure and heart rate have dropped like quite bad. So she like opened the little cap on the IV thing and put in some medicine which was supposed to make my heart rate rise because it was dropping. So she'd put that in, and within like a few minutes I felt so much better. I didn't feel sick anymore. And then she put a little bit more in to keep it kind of, because it was dropping quite worrying low. So yeah, she'd managed to keep that, and then that's when we started to hear the popping. So after a little while, when everyone started to be a little panicked, and he should have, because I'd heard they had his head. So I was thinking, well, why is this taking a lot longer when you've got his head? It should have been kind of like, he's here. So I heard the pop and heard the pop. I said, is everything okay? Because I was really starting to worry. Of course, Lee was worried about me and about baby because, of course, my heart rate was going. So they were giving me meds, and she was kind of watching my charts. And she says, yes, he's fine. It's just they had his head, and then he rotated. So his head went this way. So, of course, they had the slit and had his head with the suction cup. And then they'd had his head, and then he'd rotated. So now they're putting the suction cup on, but it kept popping off. And that's what the popping and the blood splat was. It was popping off his head. So she said what they're going to do now is try the forceps. So they got the forceps, and eventually we heard the cry. We heard his little cry. I just started sobbing. I just couldn't control myself because it was just worrying, and we were just worried for about 15 minutes. And then I'd asked what was the matter because no one was around. Everyone was kind of like getting to him. And she'd come and said, oh, he's fine. It's just he's rotated. So they're just trying to get a good grip to get him out with him turning. So we heard his cry. They took him off to check him and everything like that, and then it was a little while after they brought him to Lee, who Lee got to have a little hold, and he was sat right next to me, and then I just cried again. And then of course he was born, if you haven't seen my birth announcement, at 10:54 AM. So we'd went in at 7, he was here for just before 11, so it wasn't too much of a long day. And he just liked to worry us by rotating. While he was supposed to be being born, my body just doesn't like to let my babies out, I keep saying. But he was born, he was healthy, he was 6 pounds 13 ounces. They said he was measuring 5 pounds 15 ounces a few days before by his scan, so I don't know what happened there, but they did say that I had no fluid. There was no fluid, like my waters had broke, but I had not noticed. The same thing happened with Ethan. I might make a birth story about Ethan's, because I don't think I've ever done that. But yes, my waters had broke. I think they must have been leaking, because I hadn't noticed a big gush or any amount or anything like that. So that was a good thing he was born early because of my fluids. But after that, we were then moved, like Lee had moved into the recovery room with Brody first, and he was having his first feed while they finished up, like basically stitching me up, closing me up. And then I was taken into the recovery room where Lee was sitting feeding Brody when I went in, so that was quite nice. And I was put onto the, like I had a blood pressure thing put on in the recovery room again, and I was shaking because I got the shakes after, which I think was from the like anaesthetic, or it could have been just from the surgery. Well, checking my blood pressure every 5 minutes, and my blood pressure was high, and then it just got higher and higher and higher, and I was supposed to be in the recovery room for half an hour, and we were in there for 2 hours, so everyone at home was ringing our phones, which were left on the ward, wondering what was happening, why we hadn't been in touch for hours and hours and hours on end. Because I think my mum heard from me last at 9 o'clock, and then it was all kind of just go from there, with like people coming in, signing forms, getting ready, everything like that. So my blood pressure, like I said, was rising and rising and rising, so they couldn't let me back to the ward. So in the end, they had to give me like tablets for high blood pressure to get it down, because it kept rising, and like I said, rising and rising and rising even more. It wasn't coming down, it was going up. So after that, we finally got it to go down a little bit. We got to go back to the ward, where I then had to get my blood pressure checked every hour on the ward. So that wasn't fun, but it was okay. Lee was able to stay all day until 9 o'clock, because of course it was during the day, so the partner's allowed to stay, so that was nice. I didn't have to buzz the midwife at all, which with Ethan I did because he was born at night. So Lee got to do everything, like pass him to me on the bed, and like I got to finally hold him. I didn't get to hold him for hours and hours because I was shaking so bad. I think he was maybe a few hours old before I got to hold, because I was just shaking and I didn't want to hold him, because I was literally like this. I just couldn't stop my whole body shaking. So like I said, we finally got back on the ward, and the first thing that I told everyone before I even had the C-section, I wanted to be out the next day. I didn't care. And then I got told, because my blood pressure was high, the chances of me getting out the next day is very, very low. But I said I want to go home tomorrow if possible. Of course, I need to put my health first before getting home to Ethan. But when the day staff went and the night staff come in, they'd said she wants to be home tomorrow, so just like keep an eye on her. So I was checked for a few hours, every hour, for my blood pressure, which stayed down after them tablets. Then it went to every 4 hours, and again stayed down. I was up and showering at 5 o'clock before tea. I hadn't eaten until that point either, so I hadn't eaten, so I was really shaky and weak because I hadn't eaten since the night before, so it was almost 24 hours of not eating. But I showered at 5, had the C-section at 11, so what's that, 6 hours after I was up and showered, walking around, like looking after him. And then I was just up on my feet from there. I was doing, of course I was just coping fine doing the nights, and then they'd put in my records that I was coping fine. I hadn't needed any help, was caring for baby perfectly fine. I had, I think, maybe 1 lot of painkillers the whole time I was in there as well. So they basically come in and said, like, you want to go home today? I was like, yes. This was the next day. They were like, right, we're getting you home today. So the doctor had come, and I was out by 1 o'clock the next day. So it was maybe a day and a half, not even that. Maybe not even 30, maybe about 30 hours stay in the hospital from going in to getting home. So I got out the next day. I was very convinced I was going to be home for Ethan the next day, and he was going to be only staying out 1 day. And we got home. I did have to have 10 days worth of blood thinner injections, which made me react bad. I had, it's just yellow now, but I had a bruise appear on my wrist within like, I think it showed up within an hour. Like, it was nothing there, and then an hour later it was there. And my whole arm went really numb and tingly. This was day 2, I think, of being home, like night 2. So I rang 111, which is like a non-emergency out of hours kind of phone line for doctors and everything, and they said it's probably the blood thinners reacting, like making your blood bruise. You might have knocked it. It could have been where you've had blood taken, because I had blood taken from like my wrist, both my hands, they were trying from my arms. I was just like a pincushion, which happens every time I need blood taken because I don't like to give it up, but never mind. So I did have them. Just before I left, the midwife checked my scar and thought it looked a little red and sore, like warm. So I was also given a week worth of antibiotics, which was 4 tablets 4 times a day. So that was not fun to take because they didn't have any higher doses apparently. So I was on antibiotics and injections when I left. I have some bruises. I also had the IV in. You're supposed to have it in until the next day, but when I was saying to Brody after, like later the night, I think it maybe was around 11 o'clock the night, it fell out, and just this video might be TMI like for blood warning, but it was like my hand just filled with blood really fast, and I had to put pressure on it with my other hand. I would show you, but I'm holding Brody because he has now calmed down, the little tinker. And I had to press like for the nurse, which was the only time I actually pressed that button the whole time I was there. And I was like holding it, and she come in and she like cleaned it up, stopped the blood. Like my whole hand was covered, so I had to like wash. They changed the sheets because it went on the sheets. I had to change Brody because it went on his little baby grow, because I think I was checking his nappy as it like come out. She says, well, at least you got rid of that wire. I was like, yeah, it's a good thing. So the first night was a little unsettled with Brody. He was up pretty much most of the time, which was fine. He slept great during the day, up during the night. I coped, I think, okay, considering I was of course really exhausted because I'd been up since like 5 o'clock on the morning, and then I was up pretty much all night, but Lee then was in the next morning. So it was actually like a really positive experience. With Ethan, it was really worrying. It was really awful experience. There was awful like people who were looking after me, but this time it was just so much different. I don't regret not trying natural. So he's here anyway. After so long, he is finally here. He is turning into a little chunk already. He's gaining so much weight already. But we are both fine anyway. I will make a like 1 week update and kind of inform you on lots of little things that's been going on. But this is really it for my birth story. Thank you if you have stuck around this long. It is a long video, and I did want to make it short, but there was a lot to say, so it is a long video. So if you stuck around, thank you so much for watching and listening and just letting me chat away. This is my first video I've made since having him, and it feels nice to be back making videos. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. I will try and get some videos of this one up and Ethan and everything like that, because I did want to make this video and that video and this video, but when you're fighting from tiredness and just adjusting to the change, you just don't get around to making the videos, so I apologise for that. But thank you all so much for watching. Like I said, if you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!